Designers may not always find the automatic checks programmed into c.s.e sufficient. Sometimes it can be necessary to have the software perform special new checks for specific design purposes. As such, user checks are inequalities defined by the user to represent the additional checks that he or she wishes to carry out. In general, the user checks depend on the internal forces in the members, either directly, when the inequalities directly use variables like .n or .m2 for example, or indirectly, when the checking inequalities include variables that depend in their turn on the internal forces at the members' extremities. In running the checks for every combination and instance, c.s.e updates the values of the internal forces in the members before evaluating all the variables and all the additional checking conditions. If a user check has been defined in the form A less than B, then an index of utilization can be defined, such as A/B. This is an absolute number. Indeed, the dimensional analysis requires that A and B be defined, so as to have the same physical dimensions. The user checks are a very general and powerful tool for designers, who can thus use c.s.e to perform precisely the structural checks that they want. Although the vast majority of checks are carried out by c.s.e automatically without the need for user checks, in some cases it can be useful to add some user checks, either to complement the system's basic checks or to run them in a different way to obtain different independent results. Not all user checks involve the internal forces in the members, whether directly or indirectly. Sometimes the user checks verify that suitable dimensional proportions have been achieved or that certain preliminary conditions have been met. A special case arises in the form of the standard checks. These repeat certain checks from the reference standard for particular specific problems, using formulae that are completely indistinguishable from user checks. The only difference is that the latter are added manually by the user, while for the former the system just prompts for some basic information and then adds the necessary inequalities itself automatically.